Salvete omnes. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our coverage of Caesar's Gallic Wars. We've made it to book 4. We are just starting with the AP section. We started with 24 last time, where Caesar is making his way into Britain. But he's coming across a little bit of trouble as men are having a hard time landing on the beach because the Britons want nothing to do with them. So, the men are terrified. The way the Britons are fighting, as a reminder, they are using cavalry and chariots along the shore. And the Romans would not do that sort of thing. So this is really throwing the Romans off. So let's see how Caesar will deal with his men not using the same sort of skill and enthusiasm that they are used to. So, 25. Quod ubi Caesar animad vertit, navis longas, quarum et species erat barbaris inusitatior, et motus ad usum expeditior, palam removere ab honorariis navibus, et remis incitare, et ad latus apertum ostium constitui, ad quin de fundis, sagitis, tormentis, hostes propelli, oxomerui usit. Quaeres magno usui nostris fuit. All right, big long sentence here, but actually a relatively easy sentence, all told, because it's kind of broken into 3 parts. So let's talk about that, or it's divided into thirds. So let's talk about that. The first part is just a temporal clause. Quod ubi Caesar animad vertit. Quod here not meaning because, meaning which, referring to everything that's happening above. Which things, which situation, ubi Caesar animad vertit, when Caesar noticed it. So basically, when Caesar noticed this thing, he's going to take action. And we get this long explanation of what he does or what happens when Caesar notices it. Navis longas. Navis, not obviously nominative or accusative by looking at it, right? It's one of the two, but it's not clear which one. But longos, definitely accusative, so navis is going to be accusative. So, something is going to happen to these long boats. So, keep that in mind. So, something about the long ships. Quarum, relative pronoun. So, the long ships, whose... And then we get this random et here, right? And a reminder, when you have an et that seems to not make sense, look for another one. We have that over here. So, et species erat barbaris inusitatior, et motus ad usum expeditior. So, the longships, whose appearance was rather unusual or more unusual to the barbarians or for the barbarians, so they're not used to seeing these sorts of ships, and quarum governing motus as well, and whose motion was expeditior ad usum, just quicker to use, easier to use. So that's the description of the longships, and then we get removere, incitari, constitui, then we get propelli and submovere. We get all of these different infinitives. So I said thirds, and it's actually like fifths or something here. We get all of these infinitives going with longos, navis, longos, and then we finally at the very end get our verb, usit. So Caesar ordered the longboats, and then we just can go from infinitive to infinitive. He ordered them paulum removere, paulum removere ab honoraris navibus. So let's actually make that a little bit longer. Here are them passive infinitive, and I think these are all going to be passive infinitives. Yeah, all passive infinitives ending with the I. Normally the infinitive ends with an RE, but remember that passive present infinitives end with an RI, or in the third conjugation, just an I. So here are them, the ships, to be removed or moved away from the cargo ships, honoraris navibus, and to be driven by oars, to be moved by oars, would be propelled by oars, whatever you do to boats. They are encouraged by oars. And to be set up or to be situated ad latus apertum, on the open side or the open flank, hostium, genitive, of the enemy. So, Move them away from the cargo ships. Propel them by the oars, as opposed to relying upon the wind. All right. Set them up on the open flank of the enemy, so the exposed side of the enemy. And from there, on the exposed side, ablative of means, ablative of means, ablative of means, hostes propelli. Let's talk about what's going on here, how to best describe this. These all refer to the boats. He ordered the boats to be moved, driven, and set up. He ordered, I like how he ordered the enemy to be repelled, as if they're going to listen to him. So he ordered the enemy to be driven back by slings and arrows and like catapults or something like that. Ballistas, I think, is a way. It's another projectile weapon. I think a bigger, more siege type projectile weapon. These are more handheld. This is more like multiple person usage. So he ordered the ships to be repositioned. He ordered the enemy to be kind of driven back by these things and to be removed, subdued almost, literally moved under. All right. Which thing, quaeres, referring to the whole situation we just described, which affair, which situation, then we get this double dative. It was for a great use, or for a great advantage, to our men. So, double dative construction used with the verb to be. This is a dative of purpose. It was for the purpose of great use. And then this is dative of reference, with reference to our men. It was not a great use for the enemy. It was a great use for our men. All right. Next sentence. Nam et navim figura et remora motu et inusitato genera tormentorum per moti barbari constituerunt, ac palomodo pedem retulerunt. Nam usually meaning something like for. You could also do indeed in this case, which I think makes a little bit more sense here. Again, we get another kind of weirdly placed et. So if we look again, we've got more ets falling around. So, et navim figura, et remora motu, et unicitato genera tormentorum. So, we get the same pattern 3 times in a row. We get navium, a genitive, and figura, which isn't obvious by this form, but it is in fact an ablative, because we get then another genitive and an ablative, and then, mixing it up a little bit, we get an ablative and a genitive. So, by the shape of the ships, and by the motion of the oars, and by the unaccustomed type, genre, right? The unaccustomed type of the ballistas, permoti barbari. Permoti, more or less, you can use this as the one kind of being governed by all these ablatives, upset or disturbed by the shape of the ships and the motion of the oars and the unusual type of ballistas, the barbarians constituerunt. They came to a stop. So they are kind of advancing on the Romans, or at least pushing the Romans back. But now they've kind of stopped, and palomodo pedem retulerunt. Literally, they brought back their foot just a little bit. Palomodo pedem retulerunt. So they have slightly retreated. So, hooray, Romans, getting a little bit of an advantage here. All right, continuing on. Atqua nostris militibus cunctantibus maxime propter altitudine maris, qui decima legiones aquilam gerebat obtestatus deos, ut eores legione feliciter enveniret, desilite inquit milites, nisi vultes aquilam ostibus prodera, ego certe meum republicae atque imperatori officium praestitero. All right, so the enemy stops and they retreat. And then we get nostris militibus cunctantibus, all definitely the same case. Plural, either dative or ablative. Looks like it could be an ablative absolute. We've got a noun and we've got our participle, so we can start that way. If we need to change it, we can go back and make it perhaps dative. So keep in mind that it could be dative, but we'll start with an ablative absolute. With our soldiers delaying, or while our soldiers were delaying, and then this phrase here is explaining why they are delaying. They are delaying mostly because of maxime as an adverb describing or modifying propter, basically an adverb describing more or less a preposition. For the most part, because of the altitude or the depth of the sea. Right, and it's one thing to jump into 1 foot, 2 foot deep water. They're jumping into 3-4 foot deep water. It's going to be up to their necks, and they're going to try to advance. And so, yeah, they're going to be delaying. All right. Qui. We don't have an antecedent to qui, so we can just apply an is or something. He who. Decimae legiones aquilam gerebat. He who carried, or the one who carried the eagle of the 10th legion. Now, aquilam is literally an eagle. In this case, it refers to the standard, or the standards, which is the flag, essentially. Wasn't necessarily a flag. It was actually just a statue of an eagle. But it is a very important symbol of the Roman army. It is akin to our flag nowadays. So he is a very important person. So the one who was carrying the standard of the 10th legion, having prayed to the gods, obtestatus deos, deponent participle, so perfect active participle, having prayed to the gods, and then indirect command in this case, so ut plus a subjunctive, having prayed that the matter, that this situation turn out luckily for the legion, said. So I would argue that ut plus innumerant is an indirect command, though I think you'll see indirect commands kind of occasionally grouped under purpose clauses, which this is something of a purpose clause as well, right? Having prayed to the gods for the purpose of it, or so that it would come out well for the legion. Either way, again, I think the idea of an indirect command is, imagine what did he say to the gods? Did he say to the gods, please, gods, let it turn out well for the legion? Then you're taking that command and just referencing it. So it could be both, I think. So he says, what does he say after praying to the gods? Desilite, jump down, he said. Milites, jump down, soldiers. Nisi. Nisi, if not or unless. I tend to translate unless in this case. Jump down unless you want the aquilam ostibus prodera. I guess in this case, you want to go straight to your infinitive. Unless you want to betray, to hand over the standard to the enemy. Dative here, right, with prodera. So, and then he continues, we'll finish off his statement real quick. I certainly, indeed, certe, meum republica adque imperatori officium praestitero. I will display, technically future perfect here, I will have displayed, so jump down. If you don't, then at least I certainly will have displayed, I will have done meum officium. Meum officium kind of bracketing what it's talking about. All right. I will certainly display my officium, my duty, to these two datives, to the republic, to the state, and to the general. There are no emperors technically in Rome, just generals. So I will do my duty for the republic, for the country, and for my general. So that is the end of his little speech. Going back up here, again, I think it's probably more likely an relative absolute. I don't think it'd be wrong to say that it's a dative. He said to our soldiers delaying, but that seems awfully separate from this for that to be the case. But you could make an argument for dative, but I'm going to say relative absolute. So the standard bearer says, look, your job is to guard the standard, guard the eagle, right? You don't want to just hand over the flag to the enemy. And I am going to do my job, and that is to march against the enemy. So the soldiers, their job is to follow and protect the standard. It's kind of a way of signaling what they need to do. Where do you advance? Do you go forward? Do you retreat? Go left, go right, etc. And you definitely don't want to lose that very important symbol. All right, and the standard bearer knows this and is going to use this to his advantage. Hoc cum voce magna dixisset, se ex nave proiecit, atquam hostes aquam ferre coipet. So, this cum voce magna dixisset. Cum here, going, I think, more with the subjunctive rather than these ablatives. Tempting when you see cum followed by an ablative to make that a preposition. I do think it's cum meaning when. When he had said this with a great voice, ablative of means, he launched himself, he projected himself ex navi from the boat. So he jumped out of the boat and he began to carry the standard in hostes. And I think we've seen this a couple of times. We will continue to see it, especially in Caesar. In plus an accusative can mean like against or towards. So a kind of attacking sort of way. And especially in military terminology, it's going to be this attacking. In military, also law courts, when you're reading, Cicero's letters, or speeches, I should say. If it's in someone, if it's in Caecilium, it means against Caecilius. So that's what's going on here. He's not carrying, to some extent, he's carrying it into the enemy, right? He's carrying it into like their territory. But more like he began to carry it against the enemy. Tum nostri cohortati inter se, ne tantum dedecus admitteretur, universi ex navi deciduerunt. So then, our men, having encouraged each other, cohortati inter se, having encouraged among themselves, having encouraged each other, is probably the better translation there. Ne tantum dedecus admitteretur. Ne plus a subjunctive. I would say this is, again, you can make this a purpose clause, or you could perhaps make it an indirect command based off of cohortati. So having encouraged each other not, kind of like not to let such a disgrace happen. Or you could look at it as a purpose clause. They encouraged each other so that such a disgrace, such a not decorous and not pleasant thing, so that such a disgrace not be admitted, not be allowed. Universi, all together, our men, all together jumped down from the ship. So, again, it would be a disgrace. It would be dedecus. It would be a disgrace to let the enemy just kind of take over the standards. You protect your flag bearer. It's consider the Iwo Jima statue, how kind of significant that is for Roman military history. And, it's like, we're raising the flag, and that shows that America is, winning here. Or consider just the national anthem, right? How the flag is still there. That's the thing that's being more or less described here. It's important to protect your flag. Hos item ex proximis primi navibus cum spexissent, subsecute ostribus ad propinqua verunt. Item, I think, like likewise, the first people, kind of the first soldiers from the proximis navibus, from the closest ships, cum conspexissent hos. So this is a very congested, or not congested, kind of like scrambled sentence. We might like to put cum first. When the first men from the closest ships had seen them doing it in this way, they then do the next sentence. He leaves the cum clause until almost the end of the clause. These men, likewise, from the nearest, the first ones, of the ships, when they had seen, etc., etc. But I would, almost start backwards. The first men from the nearby ships, when they had seen these soldiers doing this, having followed suit, basically having done the same thing, they approached hostibus. They approached the enemy. Hostibus dative here because a broken quaerunt takes the dative. So subsecuti going with primi, which is referring to our men, right? Having followed or having pursued, they approached the enemy. So one ship, right, has a standard bearer jump down, Tessilite, right? So he jumps down, and then everyone from his boat jumps down, and then everybody from the nearby boats jumps down, and then you're just going to kind of get this wave of Roman soldiers jumping into the water. But that will be for next time, for number 26. We will go ahead and stop there for today. So, as always, if you have any questions, let me know. Again, in the comments, in class, or in email, whatever works. If you're not in my class and you are enjoying this content and you have questions, of course, put those in the comments. And if you are not in my class, don't forget to, or feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Ha ha ha, YouTube. All right. That said, I will end it for today. Have a great rest of your day. I will see you guys next time. Later.